The date was April 14th, 1912, and the North Atlantic is unusually calm. The sea is flat as glass and the night is moonless as one of the most advanced ships ever built is racing westward toward New York. Aboard are some of the wealthiest people on Earth, industrial magnates, millionaires, politicians, immigrants seeking new lives. The ship had more than 2,200 souls. The ship's captain is among the most respected mariners of his generation. The vessel itself is celebrated as a triumph of modern engineering. And yet, throughout that day, warnings begin arriving, repeatedly. Messages from ships ahead report dangerous fields of drifting ice, massive icebergs, and pack ice. These were frozen hazards directly in Titanic's path. The warnings are not vague, they are specific, repeated, persistent, and increasingly urgent. Yet Titanic continues almost unchanged, hour after hour and mile after mile, and at nearly full speed, toward disaster. The question that has haunted historians for more than a century is remarkably simple. If Titanic was warned repeatedly about icebergs, why didn't she slow down? The answer reveals a fascinating story involving technology, human psychology, maritime culture, economic pressures, communication failures, and decisions that seemed perfectly reasonable until they weren't. This is the story of the warnings Titanic received. Who heard them, who ignored them, and how one of history's greatest disasters may have been shaped not by a single mistake but by a chain of assumptions. To understand Titanic's decisions, we must first understand the mindset of 1912. The early 20th century was an age of extraordinary confidence. Humanity appeared unstoppable as technology was transforming civilization. Airplanes had taken flight and automobiles were reshaping transportation. Radio signals crossed oceans and gigantic steel ships connected continents. Every year seemed to bring a new miracle. Their primary function often involved handling passenger messages. Wealthy travelers sent personal telegrams, business communications, and social messages. The system generated revenue. Throughout April 14th, wireless traffic was heavy, and amid that traffic came ice warnings. Several ships reported dangerous conditions ahead. Some messages reached the bridge, others became buried within the growing flood of communications. Each warning added another piece to an increasingly troubling picture, but no one yet saw the complete puzzle point. One of the most important warnings came from the ship SS Californian. The Californian had encountered extensive ice. Its crew observed conditions serious enough to halt progress. The vessel eventually stopped for the night. Just think about that. A ship in the same region had literally ceased moving because of ice hazards. The information was transmitted, and so Titanic knew ice existed ahead. Yet context matters. From Titanic's perspective, conditions where she currently sailed remained clear. Visibility seemed adequate and the sea appeared navigable, and experienced officers believed they could detect obstacles in sufficient time. That belief would become one of the central and unfortunate assumptions of the voyage. At the center of the story stands one man, Edward Smith. Smith was neither reckless nor inexperienced. He was quite the opposite. He possessed decades of maritime experience and he commanded immense respect. This voyage was expected to be among the final chapters of his distinguished career. Many passengers specifically chose voyages under Smith's command. Historians continue debating precisely what Smith thought about the warnings. What is clear is that he did not order major speed reductions. Why? Because the prevailing maritime culture often favored maintaining schedules unless conditions clearly demanded otherwise. Captains frequently navigated through regions containing reported ice. The accepted solution was vigilance lookouts, bridge officers, and course adjustments if necessary. Not necessarily slowing dramatically. Today, this may seem astonishing, but viewed through the lens of 1912, the decision was far less controversial until tragedy transformed perception. Another factor enters the story here: prestige, competition, and public perception. Ocean liners were not merely transportation. They were symbols. They were symbols of national achievements, corporate showcases, and public spectacles. Every voyage attracted attention. Titanic's maiden voyage was a major international event, and so arriving on schedule mattered. Demonstrating reliability mattered, and maintaining confidence mattered. There is little evidence that executives explicitly ordered dangerous behavior, but organizations create expectations and expectations influence choices. No captain wanted unnecessary delays, and no company wanted headlines suggesting weakness. No one wanted to appear overly cautious, especially aboard the most celebrated ship in the world. The result was subtle pressure, not necessarily direct orders, but a culture that rewarded confidence. At the heart of Titanic's decisions lay one crucial belief. The officers believed they would see an iceberg before hitting it. This assumption sounds reasonable. After all, icebergs are enormous, some tower hundreds of feet above the water. How could such a massive object go unnoticed? But nature had prepared a perfect trap. The sea was unusually calm. There were no waves breaking against iceberg bases, and no moon illuminated the horizon. Visibility was deceptive. Conditions that seemed favorable actually reduced detection opportunities. Yet the officers could not know precisely how dangerous those conditions were. They operated according to experience, and experience suggested that vigilance would suffice. Then history would prove otherwise. One of the most debated details involves binoculars. The lookouts lacked binoculars in the crow's nest. A key connected to storage arrangements had not accompanied personnel changes before departure. Over time, this detail became legendary. Some have portrayed it as the decisive factor, but the reality is more complicated. Many maritime experts note that lookouts often relied primarily on naked eye observation. Binoculars could actually narrow the field of view. The larger issue was darkness and the absence of moonlight. There was also the unusual calmness of the sea. Even with binoculars, detection might not have occurred much earlier. Yet the story remains compelling because it illustrates a recurring theme. Many small circumstances aligned against Titanic simultaneously. As the evening progressed, another critical warning arrived. A nearby vessel reported heavy ice directly ahead, but Titanic's wireless operators were overwhelmed. The ship had experienced equipment issues earlier, and a backlog of passenger messages needed transmission. When another ship interrupted with additional ice information, the response was sharp. The warning was effectively brushed aside. The operator returned to his workload. This moment has fascinated historians for generations, not because someone intentionally ignored danger, but because it demonstrates how routine pressures can overwhelm important information. Nobody believed they were rejecting a life-or-death message. They believed they were managing traffic. An ordinary task on an ordinary evening aboard an extraordinary ship. By late evening, Titanic remained near top cruising speed at approximately 22 knots. The giant vessel consumed the Atlantic mile after mile. Passengers danced, read books, played cards, and enjoyed fine dining, while many slept peacefully, unaware that multiple warnings had accumulated throughout the day and that ice fields surrounded sections of the route ahead. They were unaware that the margin for error was shrinking. The ship moved forward with confidence, although the officers remained alert. The lookouts scanned the darkness, and everything seemed under control until 11:40 p.m. Suddenly, the impossible appeared, a dark mass directly ahead. Lookout Frederick Fleet spotted the iceberg. The warning bell rang. 3 sharp strikes. The telephone connected to the bridge. Iceberg right ahead. It was already an emergency, and seconds mattered. Bridge officer William Murdoch reacted immediately. Orders were issued, the helm turned, and engines adjusted. The crew fought desperately to avoid impact, but physics had entered the conversation, and physics was unforgiving. A vessel weighing tens of thousands of tons could not change direction instantly. The warnings had come too late, or perhaps the response to earlier warnings had come too slowly. At first, many passengers barely noticed. The collision felt surprisingly mild, as there was no dramatic crash or violent explosion. There was no cinematic chaos. Yet below the waterline, disaster unfolded. Multiple compartments had been breached, and water advanced relentlessly. Soon the horrifying truth emerged. Titanic would sink. The unsinkable ship was doomed, and as officers struggled to organize evacuation, a question began taking shape. How had this happened? Hadn't there been warnings? The answer was yes, many warnings, which only deepened the mystery. In the aftermath, investigations began on both sides of the Atlantic. Politicians demanded answers. Journalists and families demanded answers. The inquiries examined every aspect of the disaster: construction, lifeboats, communications, training, navigation, and the ice warnings. Investigators discovered something startling. Titanic had not been surprised by the existence of ice. The ship had been informed repeatedly. The issue was not ignorance, the issue was interpretation. How seriously should warnings have been taken? When should speed have been reduced? When should precaution outweigh confidence? Those questions became central to maritime safety reforms. Modern psychologists identify a phenomenon called normalcy bias. People expect the future to resemble the past. If something has never happened before, we assume it probably won't happen now. Titanic's officers were experienced, and that experience may paradoxically have increased confidence. They had encountered ice before, just as other captains had encountered ice before. Most voyages ended safely. Each successful crossing reinforced belief in existing practices. Humans rarely perceive catastrophe while it is developing. Instead, we interpret warning signs through familiar frameworks. Everything seems normal until suddenly it isn't. Titanic provides one of history's most powerful examples. The sinking transformed maritime safety. The consequences were enormous: more lifeboats, continuous radio monitoring, improved emergency procedures, better iceberg tracking, and eventually, the creation of the International Ice Patrol. Today, ships receive information unimaginable in 1912 from satellites, radar, GPS, digital communications, and real-time weather systems. Yet many of those improvements emerged because Titanic revealed weaknesses in existing assumptions. The disaster became a turning point, a costly lesson written in ice and steel. More than a century later, historians still debate responsibility. Was Captain Smith too confident? Did company culture encourage risk? Were communication systems inadequate? Did officers underestimate conditions? The answer may be all of the above and none individually. The evidence suggests Titanic did not sink because one person made one catastrophic decision. Instead, many reasonable decisions combined into an unreasonable outcome. Every participant acted according to assumptions that seemed sensible at the time. That is what makes the story so unsettling. The disaster emerged not from obvious recklessness, but from confidence, routine, experience, and the belief that tomorrow would resemble yesterday. So why didn't Titanic slow down? Because the warnings did not appear extraordinary enough, and experienced mariners believed they could navigate safely. The maritime culture of the time favored maintaining speed, even as communication systems were imperfect. Then confidence overshadowed caution, and human beings often struggle to recognize disaster before it arrives. Titanic was warned repeatedly. The messages were real. The danger was real, yet the ship continued forward, not because no one knew, but because nobody fully understood what those warnings truly meant. And perhaps that is the most enduring lesson of all. History's greatest disasters are rarely caused by complete ignorance. More often, they occur when people possess pieces of the truth but fail to see the entire picture. The Atlantic Ocean remains silent about that night, but the questions raised by Titanic still echo through every industry, every institution, and every generation. How many warnings are enough? When should caution override confidence? And would we recognize the iceberg ahead before it is too late? If you are enjoying this deep dive and want more captivating, thoroughly researched videos like this, consider subscribing. I post in-depth documentaries that separate evidence from speculation and explore stories you won't hear in a typical news report. The series continues, and our next video will be titled, "Why Titanic's Lifeboats Were Half Empty."